Welcome everyone, welcome to another Neutral Lounge. I'm your host Joel, and with me as usual is my co-host Al, and together we make up the Neutral Lounge. In this episode, we'll be talking about Blizzcon, Steam hardware stats, AMD on mobile computers in 2021, free-to-play games, and cryptocurrency mining processes. Without further ado, let's start. Hey Al.
Hey Joe.
So the first order of the day, I guess, is BlizzCon, and what Blizzard's future plans are, games they showed off, and generally, what we feel about Blizzard. Blizzard were one of my favorite games developers.
Yeah.
I've been following them before they kind of got together with Activision, let's say.
Yeah.
And they were one of the first software developers that I heard use the term "it's ready when it's ready." Whether that sort of kind of mindset exists any longer, I don't know. But I mean, it's
I don't know. They've been sticking to their guns with Blizzard. Yeah, my history with them starts actually in a really weird state. I think I started on the PlayStation with Diablo 1 actually, and then Warcraft 3. And then as soon as Diablo 2 was due, I think I then shifted it across to PC. And that was really, really good. Sunk so many hours into Diablo 2 and the expansion.
I mean, I definitely dabbled in Diablo 2, but I think my Blizzard moment, quote unquote, was basically Warcraft 3.
Mm.
And it was, and my experience with Blizzard at the time was exclusively on PC.
Yeah.
I must have completed the campaign on Warcraft 3 plus the expansion Frozen Throne multiple times really. Also spent a lot of time using their map editor.
Oh
Which
yeah.
at the time, I thought, wow, this is pretty powerful for what it was.
Yeah.
So that was my earliest memory of Blizzard. Equally, the art, the type of universes they created, the worlds, the characters. But to be fair, I mean, you look at Warcraft and Starcraft, it's a bit of a rip-off of the Warhammer universe, really. What Games Workshop.
Yeah, but you could argue all of it stems from a combination of The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings. There's a whole bunch of all at the same time, kind of ripping each other off to an extent.
Yeah, kind of true, but I mean, I'd have to look at the history of it to see what actually happened. I mean, there are so many similarities and overlaps. You kind of think it can't be just chance.
It's orc with a C or an orc with a K.
yeah, exactly. But I mean, Blizzard, games developer with a long, illustrious history.
Yeah.
Much, loved IP. And obviously they recently did BlizzCon, obviously a virtual event. And from what I could see, it seemed to be front and center, really, Diablo 2.
Yeah.
Remastered game.
Yeah.
I think they call it Resurrection, right?
Yeah, something like that, Resurrected or something, and it would be. Well, I think the interesting thing is it's only just been shown, and it's going to be in 2021. So if that's late this year, I think great. Does that give a year and a half before Diablo 4? We don't know if that's Diablo 4 is going to be 24, 23. It probably needs a bit of time, I think, with Diablo 2. It's one of those games I can see myself sinking a lot of time into.
Yeah, most definitely, really. I mean, and you're right about Diablo 4. I don't know when it's due out. Be sort of surprised if it came out this year.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's it feels like a 2022 thing. I don't think they've actually given it a date yet either.
Yeah.
If I remember rightly.
There's just been a few trailers. There's a bit of hype around it. At least on last BlizzCon, I think it was, where they kind of showed it.
Yeah. I mean, I do like the look of the Diablo 2 remaster. It's very, I mean, in my mind, it's very distinct from Diablo 3. And my memory of D2 is basically hazy at best. But when I kind of looked at the remaster and obviously the original footage, I thought, wow, it's the art style is different, the mood is really different. I mean,
well, they're doing like how EA did with Command and Conquer, the remastered one. There's basically a switch where you can change it from the original sort of quality of graphics straight into the brand new one. So there's like you can basically, I think you can do it real time on the fly. You can just change it. Similar to Command and Conquer. Yeah.
I mean, there's still a lot of players who actually still play D2, as much as I know. Maybe I won't want it. I might use a feature like that for maybe all of kind of a week. Then beyond that, I'm probably not even going to touch it. But I'm sure there are players out there who still playing D2. Who maybe want to fall back to to the original looking feel.
Yeah, and there's also some quality of life improvements as well. I think they showed the things around the stash and the shared stash, because I remember very distinctly using lots of additional characters, or mules as they called it, just to store items.
Interesting.
And you'd have to gamble. So basically, you'd have to go into a room with your main character, go find a spot that only you know where you're going to go to, drop a load of items, and then go and collect it from that same spot with your other character.
Basically, an inventory workaround.
Yeah, by using your character's personal stash. But doing those quality of life things, which would be great. And I could definitely see myself playing quite a lot of it, especially with my brother as well. So,
I mean, I think the art style is very different as well. I mean, that's one thing I took away from the video I saw in BlizzCon.
Yeah.
I mean, say what you say about Diablo 3. Diablo 3, colourful and fast-paced, not very moody, not very dark, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Diablo 2 felt a lot darker overtones.
And Diablo 3 is an interesting one, where it was, I don't know, it was okay at the start. Then they had the whole controversy with the auction house. Then they fixed it.
Yeah.
And then the drop started to be pretty good from I think it's the legendary items were then corrected, because I think it was the yellow rare items which were more powerful than the legendary items or something. And then they created that whole rift system and sort of ancient level items as well, which kept people going for ages. It kept me going back to it.
Yeah. I love Diablo 3. I mean, like you, Al, I've sunk a lot of hours into it. We've built a lot of characters. It's a weird one, isn't it? You effectively, the whole game is just about your build.
Yeah.
And you're just grinding away at the same level over and over again, and that's pretty much it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, it just keeps you hooked.
And the seasonal aspects were pretty good. I think they actually did force you to recreate a brand new character, forced you to do something again, with some new additional special things per season. So that was quite nice. But I think my only worry about Diablo 2, and it's just probably not much of a worry, because I think the developers are different. But I guess the Warcraft 3 remaster, they did screw that up. Yeah, there's a lot of backlash on that one. And I think they've wound down the team that's looking after it now. So it's really, there's still things that needs fixing, but it won't get fixed now at I think the current situation. Yeah, because Warcraft 3 was such a fundamental game. Also, I guess one of the other big kind of things with it was the whole custom the custom maps had a lot of restrictions. Back in the day, you could create almost any third-party map. Didn't matter if it had, it was based on Mario, it was based on some other particular theme. You would probably be okay, because it wasn't either wasn't as visible, wasn't as popular, there wasn't as many copyright strikes, that sort of thing that's visible. Nowadays, with YouTube, Twitch, and everything, there's all this sort of DMCA copyright striking, that sort of stuff, which has restricted I guess the some of the good sides of Warcraft 3. And the mods and the custom maps.
Yeah,
that was in there.
I mean, didn't Dota start from a Warcraft 3 kind of like custom map, right? So,
that was it. That's right. I used to play Dota 1. Enjoyed it a lot in Warcraft 3. That was actually, I probably didn't even play most of the main sort of competitive scene with it. I just played Dota most of the time. So
it was
logging on to the custom map.
It was called something else though, wasn't it? It was called something of the Ancients.
Well, no, it was the same thing. So it's just Defense of the Ancients.
Right. Oh no, it's
the same one.
Thing, of course.
Yeah. And then eventually, when Dota 2 came out, I guess Valve took the rights with IceFrog, and then did a deal with Blizzard to split the two sides, because I think Blizzard then did Heroes of the Storm as well. Another MOBA kind of game.
Yeah, there's a lot to kind of thank Warcraft 3 for. I mean, it's a shame to hear, right, that team that did the kind of remasters being wound down. For a time. I mean, the Warcraft 3 remaster was something that I was thinking, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
definitely get a hold of that and basically sink some time into it and just, replay the campaign and whatnot with the kind of improved visuals and all of that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But if they wound it down, they're not going to fix some of these issues. I don't know that I'll ever touch it.
Yeah.
Which is a shame, really. It's a game that deserves some, love and attention, if you ask me.
Yeah. I don't know. I think they've got a chance with Diablo 2, I think, to redeem themselves, as Blizzard as an organization around it, I think.
Yeah.
The other thing they showed was Overwatch 2, which I'm not... I did play a lot of Overwatch when it first came out, but I've just gone it went very stale on me. I think after they started releasing too many characters, I think was the problem, was that the pace at which they released new characters and the rebalancing and the readjustment to the characters wasn't quite right for me. So basically, the seasonal aspect, the new characters that kept coming along, and they were free, just wasn't the right pace for me. So I kind of gave up after a few of the ranked, competitive kind of seasons. I kind of gave up after the second and third one.
Yeah, I'm not an Overwatch player. I mean, I did follow it before it came out because obviously at the time, right, there was a big, what do they call it? The subgenre was kind of hero shooters. Yeah, at the time.
Yeah.
And there was Overwatch, and then there was the other one. I think Gearbox were doing because Battleborn.
Yeah, there was quite a few of them, weren't there? Yeah, there was.
Yeah,
and there was that. There was that one game that got quite popular and then suddenly shut down. As well. But I guess everything that was kind of squads based kind of things. I think PUBG just suddenly just killed that whole market as well for quite some time as it kind of grew in popularity. And then Apex Legends out of nowhere, and I think they just literally killed most of the sort of squad based PvP kind of market.
Going back to Overwatch, I kind of decided to choose a kind of like hero shooter, and I actually picked Battleborn. So I probably kind of like banked on the wrong thing. But it's interesting about Overwatch because your point on too many characters? Is it just the effort it takes to master each character, or is it like a Diablo 3
it's
where
a
you
combination
build
of things? Yeah. So with the characters, they were quite unique, and it got to a point. I think on the first season when I was playing it quite a lot, that the meta, so basically the style, the best characters were kind of known. And what would happen is that people would choose a really good balanced team. And actually, I remember Overwatch suggests you to pick a character. So, obviously there's the tanks, the healers, the DPSs, there's a whole bunch of blend of characters, and it suggests, things for you to go to. And obviously, people in ranked generally tried to follow it, because you're trying to win. But as the meta kind of shifted, you had new characters. You would really struggle in ranked, whereby a lot of the players wouldn't get the new meta, and it would take so long for them to readjust, and you just go through pain of, I don't know, weeks and weeks of pain for people to rebalance what's going on, and just kind of waiting for good kind of quality of game, or at least quality of match. Yeah, which is it just becomes more painful as you're playing it, because you had a good base, you're having a kind of good sessions, good games, and then the whole thing just gets reset.
Interesting. Sounds a bit jarring.
Yeah, and I think that's the problem. So, a brand new character would come in, and people were still experimenting with them. I think it's good on one side where you've got something new to play with, but then I think if it fundamentally changes the game, and they've not really balanced it, then everyone's just or the fact that you go into a game and there's always this brand new character, even though it's rubbish. So they would just play it just because it's a new character, rather than actually trying to win the game.
Interesting. So the level of experimentation in game, actually.
Yeah, and actually, if you're experimenting, surely you shouldn't be doing it in ranked. It just feels really weird but people would do it. So it just wasn't a great situation to be in.
Interesting. Yeah. The other thing they showed was obviously World of Warcraft. I mean, I don't know how that's doing. At one point that was the game, wasn't it? That was a huge money maker. Probably one of the reasons Activision decided to kind of buy kind of like Blizzard. Weren't you?
I sunk 4 years into that game.
You were a bit of a World of Warcraft player at the time, weren't you?
Yeah, Vanilla, Burning Crusade, and I think I did one more expansion, and I kind of gave up because it just became literally a second job.
Yeah, I
It was
heard
just
that about it.
so much effort.
I mean, ironically, right? I mean, I followed that game as it was being developed right through to launch, right? And I made a conscious decision that I was never going to play it. And it wasn't even the subscription model that put me off at the time. It was more about, like you said, it was the amount of hours you need to sink into the game. And I thought, there's just no way I could kind of give anything like that the kind of time
Yeah,
investment it needed.
I think it was. I remember it just when it came out. I think I was still in uni at the time in my last year, and I avoided it because I knew I would get addicted and I would sink too much time into it. So I managed to join onto it afterwards. So I joined late into the sort of the main game. But I think I quickly kind of caught up, kind of to where it was going, and eventually it got I was pretty good with the game. I was pretty good at organizing the people. So I ended up doing raid leading, guild leading, and all that sort of stuff. But it was so much effort. It was, managing people's time, arranging people to come join at a specific time to go and do things. I'd have to spend time going to read up strategies and other things and doing lots of prep work just to get it going. Yeah.
Sounds like a project management job. Program management or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's interesting is that, I mean, and this is not a new thing, but they actually are offering the classic version.
Oh yeah.
And I'm not sure if that's the classic version of Warcraft, warts and all, or if that's just basically here's the world as it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They followed the same release cycle or something as well, or at least the versions anyway. They basically put a pretty stable vanilla version, and then they slowly started releasing the content bit by bit. And I think they've already talked about doing the next expansion, which is the Burning Crusade, for that vanilla classic kind of servers and things like that. I think a lot of people still hold on to the original because of the size, really, because basically the raids back in the original were 40 people. You'd have to arrange basically 8 groups of 5 because you can only have them in groups of 5. You'd have to structure them in tanks, healers, damage. It was a lot of work logistically managing that stuff, but we were, we had the tools. We had like TeamSpeak.
Interesting.
And I think Ventrilo and other things at the time that we were kind of using to kind of arrange things. And and actually I think World of Warcraft had a really good optionality to create additional tools and overlays on top of the game. So there's a lot of custom add-ons with damage meters, guild, raid kind of assistance things which pops alerts. So there's some really useful tools that helped actually make the game even better. And I think most of that has actually been started to slowly being built into World of Warcraft itself now.
Why do you think they brought back the classic though? I mean, is it?
I think because again, the original had 40. The original, it started to get, I guess, easier and easier to an extent, or the group started to become smaller. So what happened was, I think by the time I'd left, joined back, I think the sort of main raids were in the sizes of 25 was the biggest, or 20 was the biggest, or something. And I think people just found it too much easier than it was before. So it was more that they probably lined it to a casual market. And what happened is that I guess the old school hardcore World of Warcraft kind of people were saying, it just doesn't tick the boxes for me anymore. So
player retention then. That's how it sounds like to me.
Yeah.
I also heard that at some point there was an unofficial group who actually offered servers who...
That's right, private servers. That basically hosted these in its original form, which a lot of people enjoyed playing as well.
I wonder if that had some bearing on Blizzard's decision, though, to offer it.
Maybe. I can't remember if they shut them all down as well at the same time.
I think they did. I can't imagine someone like Activision would have tolerated that. You know what I mean? Like they would have kind of like wanted to like shut those guys down. I mean, any kind of like a redistribution of kind of like revenue would have been kind of unacceptable.
Yeah.
Interesting. I tell you, going back to the Diablo, I think one thing that I got from the actual BlizzCon talks, they're actually building a rendering engine on top of the original code of D2.
Yeah,
So
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
not a
yeah.
completely new game, but certainly the visuals are being reworked. It sounded, hugely complex to basically build a 3D rendering engine on top of game logic that was built to work with, 2D sprites.
Yeah, especially if the game engine and the tick of your damage, and I think they were showing the grid system as well, actually, that was quite interesting, kind of looking
Yeah,
through all that stuff, and how it's going to work with something, let's assume the game engine does run on 30 frames or 30 ticks, and if it's running on 60, what is that going to do, and how is that going to make the kind of visuals of where you're actually standing, or your position of your character and the other sort of enemy characters where they're going to sit. It'd be interesting to see if they can actually make it work. But yeah, I think Diablo 2. I'm definitely looking forward to.
yeah. I think I'm looking to kind of play that actually,
Hmm.
just to kind of relive D2.
Hmm.
And again, I know it's not the same game as D3,
Yeah.
and certainly by the time we got to D3, it was all about our seasons really, and we used to kind of invest all sorts of hours into it. The
Yeah.
campaign didn't really kind of last that long for me.
I'm interested to see if so a lot of if you're really into your Diablo 2, basically the end game basically revolved around either having a sorceress or a paladin with teleportation and being able to do Mephisto runs, Bale runs extremely quickly. So
Uh,
um, I'm wondering if there's going to be a massive skew towards particular characters on release because I'm pretty certain I'm going to go with a sorceress as well straight away just because of the teleportation.
yeah, the way that it sounded to me is the mechanics will be very similar, obviously,
Mm,
but they are trying to kind of address some of the warts.
yeah.
Because they're carrying over a lot of the imperfections,
Mm,
because some of these imperfections are what really people remember about the game.
yeah.
But there's certain things that maybe at the time the community kind of wanted addressed, but
Yeah.
it was never addressed that, they may address.
Yeah.
But someone who knows Diablo 2 better than I do would, be able to
Yeah.
comment a little bit more on that. But
I,
that's the gist of what I got from the
mm,
development team.
yeah. And I'm wondering if they bring in stuff like something that I would like to see is the rifts. The rift system I thought was actually pretty good in Diablo 3 because it actually forced you to actually create team compilations where there's compositions, whereas Diablo 2 you were pretty much just kind of going on your own, rushing to bosses, killing the boss, and and the classic. I'm gonna be the best, clicker in the world to pick up the item quicker than anyone else.
Oh my gosh, I know game design's not changed much then.
Yeah, but Diablo 3 they changed that, right? So Diablo 3
Mm.
was everyone had their own drop pool, but
Yeah, true.
Diablo 2 was hilarious for basically being the best left clicker or some kind of script just to pick items up.
Interesting. I haven't really been religiously following Blizzard for a while now. I
Mm,
mean, do we think Blizzard are the same company they were, let's say, 10 years ago?
mm.
Because obviously there was that whole controversy with, what was it, Diablo Immortal
Oh yeah, yeah,
being
yeah.
a mobile game, and they're doing more kind of fan lip service now with the classic versions of certain
Mm,
IPs they have. And I think they're doing it with more than actual World of
yeah.
Warcraft. I can't remember the other game they
Mm.
were.
Well, there was the Dota-like thing, the Heroes of the Storm, which
That's it, Heroes of the
I
Storm.
actually played that quite a bit. That was actually quite good fun, and actually it's still relatively well supported, even although they wound back the how should I say the esports scene, the funding to competitions and other things, and then the cadence of release cycles. But they've kept up with releasing heroes and stuff as a like you say a
There's
fan
a classic
service.
version of that coming out now.
Mm.
So, I mean, it just feels like something they're planning to do more and more of.
Mm.
Well, depending on the game and the community for that said game. But, do we think it's the same Blizzard that
Mm.
was there 10 years ago?
Prob-
Is it somewhat different?
yeah, probably not. Right. I think a lot of the teams have moved. A lot of the key people have kind of moved.
Yeah. I'm not sure that, obviously, like you, I'm not sure they're the same company.
Mm.
I think being tied to a publisher like Activision,
Yeah.
no matter what you say, their culture's gonna superimpose onto your culture. There'll be different sorts of pressures and that sort of thing.
Yeah, for sure. Different
Um,
priorities, different standards,
yeah,
different all sorts of
yeah,
stuff. Yeah.
yeah. To a degree, I think they're still trying to look after the IP they've got. That's definitely, a good thing. And,
Mm.
D2, I think D3 is still going strong.
Yeah.
We haven't even talked about Diablo 4.
Mm.
that looks like something that I'll play as soon as it comes out.
Yeah.
They're a developer who is still really churning out the kind of games we want to play.
Yeah.
If not anything else, that's for sure. And looking after their own IP, so I guess we can't complain too much.
Yeah. Apart from maybe the last few years, they've been relatively good at what they've been doing. And fixing Diablo 3 I think was very important to get done. But yeah, it's a bit of a shame with Warcraft 3 remastered and the whole Diablo Immortal thing. Although actually, it's not actually that bad a game. It's just that they, of all places, to announce it at BlizzCon when everyone is expecting Diablo 4 was not really great. Especially to selling to a PC market.
Yeah, it's a bit of a PR misstep.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a terrible thing for Blizzard to do. It's just that the timing, the location, it was a bit of a misstep, really.
Yeah, because I think Diablo Immortal, the ones I've been looking at, is looking really good. And actually, I think it'll sell and play pretty well on a mobile phone.
Looks like it's D3 based, right?
Yeah, it's just essentially D3 but on mobile, and runs pretty nice. So
I have to say it's a good fit. To be honest.
Yep.
Okay, with that said, let's move on to our next topic. So, what we want to talk about right now is Steam's hardware stats. Looking at the actual kind of PC state of play, and I think really looking at how high percentage of PCs compared to the next gen consoles, and what really is low end. And I think also, has the actual pandemic changed those stats? I think you looked at the stats in a bit more detail than I did.
Yeah.
Like when I looked at the stats, there was a few kind of raised eyebrows from my end. And I did wonder, well, how is it that's kind of like come up a few percentile? I mean, we're talking about, really small percentiles here.
Yeah.
But the reality is, with the numbers we're talking about, any fraction of a percentage is
still pretty huge.
Not a small number.
Yeah.
Correct. It's no small number.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, I think if you look on, and maybe we'll put it in the podcast description or something. But if you look at the stats that Steam publish, monthly, there's some really interesting things that you can glean from it. For those that can't see it and are just listening, they look at what operating systems they have, the typical RAM, CPU speed, physical cores, the video, the actual graphics card that they've got, resolution on the screen and multiple screens. An interesting one is language, actually, which I'll talk upon because I think the statistics on that shift is quite interesting. And then some other ones which are just quite random, like free hard drive space, and total hard drive space.
For me, I thought, what's the point of that? You know what I mean? What is that exactly going to show?
I don't know. Maybe people are buying more hard drives, or they're just filling it up with too many Steam games or something.
Yeah, potentially.
Yeah. But yeah, I think there's some obvious ones, right? So it's an obvious Windows estate that the Steam users are on.
Yeah.
The CPUs is still predominantly Intel, from what I can see. If you look on, there's basically some high-level graphs, but you can see Intel were basically 80%, and then it rolls down to now is about 72%. AMD have definitely been slowly moving in from August 2019 all the way to January 21. So that's a decrease or an increase for AMD for about 8% over that time period. Let's see what else. RAM typically 16 gig. That's the predominant one, and then 8 gig. So 43% of those surveyed was using 16 gigs of RAM. 28% using 8 gigs. So quite standard kind of things. And then I guess graphics card is probably the next interesting one. So the most popular is the GeForce 1060, GeForce GTX 1060.
And that's like 9.38%.
Yeah.
Or something along those lines. I mean, that's the thing as well. I mean, you have this whole kind of PC master race thing going on. Yeah. And believe me, when the mood kind of like fits, right? I'm all PC master race as well. Yeah. I mean, but the reality is, I mean, looking at this table, and I'm not just looking at the top graphics card. There's 1060 and the second one, 1050 Ti, 1650, 1050. I mean, predominantly, we're talking about 2 generations back here, right? Pascal architecture, which we all know was an excellent kind of architecture for its time. Yeah, no doubt about that. But this just kind of says that the majority of people who game on PCs aren't using the really high-end parts that everybody basically kind of like, salivates over.
Exactly. It's not the YouTubers that are hyping up this really high performance card, because it's not even, I would say it's not even best value market. It's probably just on the low end or mid level kind of entry market. So you look at the 1060, 1050, 1650, 1050, 2060, and then the only thing that's coming into mid range is that 1070. So then that's at least 6 down the line.
Yeah.
And then 2070, 1660, and then 2070 Super. So it's quite a way away before it gets kind of really popular.
Yeah, and the graphics card that I've got a 2080. That's like 0.82% of the, 0.82%, not even 1% of the actual kind of, overall kind of Steam survey.
Actually, what would be, maybe I should pull these out actually and put a ranking against the graphics card. That might be quite interesting statistics to work out high-end versus mid-range kind of markets and that kind of slice.
But this will be the controversial thing to say. Based on this, I mean, does this generally mean that if you buy an Xbox Series X or a PS5, that you're gonna be
ahead of the average gamer?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
I mean, this is what it's saying to me. I mean, like, I'm sure if anybody was listening to our podcast, we'd get plenty of, like PC Master Race hate. But I mean, for now we haven't got that problem.
No, but it's if you were to, but then I think that goes into it, right? If you were to rank these cards from a performance perspective and say where would you put a PS5 and an Xbox Series X, kind of next to it, you're going to see that it's actually quite high up that scale, because of the performance leap that we've had on this on this most recent generation. And if you look at the uptake, and I guess with the PC market being so difficult to get new cards, you're really struggling here, because if I look at any of the 30 series, you're talking, let's see, the 3080 at 0.63%. That's the first one I'm seeing.
It's tiny. It's a tiny comparison. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
I mean, there was that point. And then there was the other observation I made, and when I look right down the table at some of the really low-powered cards, maybe 3 generations back, even maybe for some of these guys even further, what I'd noticed, there was a change, i.e. the delta there was a positive delta that had gone up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you look down the bottom half of the table with these lower-powered cards, it's all green. Yeah. And you know what I took from that? I actually thought that, is it a case that people are gaming more, and and people who are, let's say, who have a PC of any sort, who not necessarily blinging out of RBG, right, are just switching it on
and
deciding, you know what, I'm gonna game.
Yeah, I'm gonna set up a Steam account and I'm gonna start gaming. That's a very good observation actually.
Yeah, or the people who moved away from it for some years because they decided, to start a family or whatever it was, right? They got their old PC, switched it on, because, what, I'm going to game. And that maybe accounts for some of the changes we're seeing at the lower end of the spectrum.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it could also be the fact that, obviously, we're looking at the UK market here, but, from ourselves, but I guess Steam isn't that. Steam is global, so the stats that they're getting there could be from anywhere in the world. And maybe there's just a different availability of, I don't know, second-hand cards or other things in different areas, of which becomes suddenly available to a much bigger market, of which potentially skews your numbers. So maybe the other interesting thing would be, I'm sure Valve must have these statistics as well behind the scenes, that observes these sorts of video card statistics almost by country, and observes what that kind of looks like. They don't make that one public, but I imagine they've got that.
Yeah, I'm sure they can't publish all the stats they collect.
Yeah. The other interesting thing was, I guess, screen resolution. We talk about 1080p, 4K, and all this other stuff, but 66.7% of players are still on 1080p.
Yep.
And I think it is the gaming format that people are familiar with. I only started moving into 1440p from when I built my kind of previous machine, and 1440 is only 7.47%. So it's massively skewed towards 1080p.
For a long time, I thought that was the resolution of choice for PC gamers now. Because of the monitors and the power of graphics cards we had, but it just looks like 1080p just still rules the roost.
Yeah. And dual monitor setups is going to be just basically an extended 1080p. So
yeah,
just doubling up on that at 71% of people that have got it. And then, Joe, I wanted to bring your attention to the language one, actually, because when I looked at it, I was like, oh, that's interesting. But if you look at language, it shows as English as 39.31% with an increase of 4.6. So I was thinking, oh, that's interesting. Well, increase of 4.6. So what's happened? What's reduced? And if you expand it, you'll see that the second most popular language on there is Simplified Chinese, but at 17.93%, but it's down 10%. So something has happened by the looks of it to either the Chinese market or maybe there's more influx of other players. I don't know, but it just seems like an interesting statistic. And
the change has got to be basically, let's say, month on month or year on year, something like that.
I think it's month on month. The delta I think they look at. I think is that right? Probably. I don't think they've done it for a full year. But if it's for a month, that's huge for that shift.
Do you know what happened recently? Recently, I think Steam launched a Chinese. They all had a Chinese version of Steam, but this one was something that was basically fully regulated by the authorities out there.
Oh,
so
okay.
It was a very specific version of Steam. So there's two versions of Steam now.
Yeah.
Operating out in China.
Yeah.
There's one that we know as Steam. Yeah. And there's another one that's basically highly regulated that I guess the Chinese government has
approved it in some way.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if the 10% drop is because people have moved over, and Valve aren't really getting those sorts of statistics.
Yeah.
But that is interesting. That is interesting because that's a massive drop, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. You look at it and you go, wow. I mean, it's still second, but that's still a 10% drop. So, or if you look at its own population, that's like a 33% technically under its own banner. Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite interesting though that the languages that have dropped off seem to be part of maybe Korea, but Asian languages like Thai, Japanese, Simplified Chinese.
Yeah.
They're all in the red. They've all dropped. Vietnamese.
Does that mean they're playing less games? I don't.
I'm not sure. I mean, quite interesting that. I mean, the one thing that's missing here, and I don't know how have you seen it anywhere in the survey, is like how many people are actually using kind of SSDs?
Oh, that's a good point. I don't think they show this on this one, so I don't think they have it. But I'd imagine. I mean, that's a good suggestion. We should get it towards send it over to Steam to get them to start kind of getting this information.
Yeah, I'm quite surprised it's not here. If you know what I mean, it's
Yeah, I guess it's only really been popularized recently with the PS5 and other things around.
Well, that's complete hype. I think PCs have had that sort of type of technology, where obviously not as quick as what's in the PS5, right now, but we've had that level of technology for a while. I'm just surprised that we're not making, it's not in the survey.
I think that'll be a really good statistic actually, because then it'll give the developers an understanding of how many people have high-powered, low latency, good kind of bandwidth of SSDs to be able to start pushing out those engines more.
Yeah.
Because they'll obviously be concerned with if your machine cannot cope with that, then they're going to have different levels of game engine in order to facilitate for those different versions. But if there's more and more people on the faster NVMe SSDs, then you know what? Push some of these things out and see.
Yeah, it certainly makes for interesting reading. I mean, like I said, what I take out of it is that, the PC market and the PC gaming market is vast. There's certainly an upper echelon of people who can really afford to purchase the technology, the high-end technology, like your really good 8 to 16 core CPUs. Your high-end graphics cards, let's say 3070s and above. Your NVMe hard drives doesn't really show it here, but your 4K displays. I mean, let's keep it real. I mean, the cost of graphics cards these days. I mean, it's going to be a hard push for anybody to buy that graphics card plus get a new monitor.
Yeah. Well, I think that's why I ended up. I spoke to you, Joe, about it, but I got myself a laptop recently because of the struggle with the PC market. Because when I looked at the full package, the laptop made a huge amount of sense. Whilst everything else was so restrictive, because I would have had to drop even more money on a desktop PC with the monitors, with the keyboard, the mouse, the mice, and everything. So it would have cost me a lot more. So I think it was a sensible decision to go with a kind of a good, powerful laptop.
And I think with that said, Al, I think it's time to move on to our next topic.
Yeah, cool.
So the next topic is AMD on mobile computers in 2021. I mean, thankfully for the market and the end users, consumers out there, we're finally seeing an AMD on what I would call high-end laptops.
Yeah.
Basically, at the moment, they're really AMD CPU plus Nvidia GPU pairings.
Yeah.
For now, anyway.
Yeah.
And really, I mean, for most of 2020, apart from, I think, the Asus ROG G14, which you might argue is not the highest end kind of laptops, yeah? I think at most it ran at 2070.
Yeah.
We really weren't seeing AMD chips in the premium, of premium kind of laptops out there. It was really kind of low to mid-tier. But this is all changing. I mean, Asus is a good case in point. They've put AMD in their dual screen Zephyrus Duo, lots of their high-end stuff, and they're pairing it with 3070s, 3080s.
Yeah.
So you're finally getting that high-end kind of AMD laptops. Yeah. We're not seeing any RDNA 2 mobile GPUs yet. I think that comes in the second half of 2021. As much as I know. I've got some opinions on that as well. You basically, as you said, you've got I think it's a Strix, right?
Yeah, so it's a I went for a G17, so a 17-inch screen, and it's the Ryzen 5800H with the Nvidia 3070 inside. And I chose I kept with a 1080p screen. So 1080p screen with 300 hertz refresh. So that was the config I went for.
Yeah, awesome.
So yeah, I've been really happy with that. So I've had that for about, I'm going to say, a week and a half, maybe 2. That's what it feels about. But it's awesome, man. I guess it's the most. How should I say? I've had a number of gaming laptops over the time with MSI, Asus ones. Yeah, my previous one that I'm just using to record this stuff is an old one which I've had for many years with a 970M in it, which still does really, really well. It's still really powerful for what you got, but it's a noisy beast in comparison to the new one that I've got. So and the really good stuff is that the amount of additional tools you have on these new on the new Asus laptop is you can tweak the fan curves, you can tweak the kind of the boost kind of internally as you were kind of doing with kind of a normal desktop as well. So there's a lot of additional things that are quite handy with it. Yeah, and I've just been playing kind of basic Genshin Impact, obviously playing Counter-Strike just to get the frame counts high, and just to test it as well. So, but although the other interesting thing that's been observed with these ones is that the way that I guess the AMD kind of setup is, as well as with Nvidia, what they've done is they've used is it GeForce Optimize or something?
It's Optimus.
Yeah. That's the one. So you're actually getting less frames, but it allows you to then switch to when you're not needing the additional graphics power. to switch down into the basic kind of onboard graphics. So then it saves a lot of battery and power. Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, these sorts of smart power saving, performance boosting kind of technologies are really the way forward for for small form factor PCs, which is what a laptop is really.
Yeah, and the other thing I've noticed is just that it doesn't heat up as much. All my other gaming laptops, I've always bought a cooling kind of base just to make sure that it doesn't overheat, give it enough airflow, and that sort of stuff. This one, I have put the cooler on it, but I don't think it actually needs it. The cooling design on this on the Asus laptop is pretty decent. And I've kept it there for now, but it runs relatively silent. It will boost up as necessary. I haven't boosted it further. I just kept it on a performance kind of setting, and you can use it on a silent setting as well. So there's quite a lot of things that you can tweak to it. But yeah, definitely very happy with the laptop and the display. The display is great. It's the first time I've started to really see these performance kind of screens on gaming laptops. Or maybe I've just been out of that market for some time, but this one is really good. It does feel really good on like Counter-Strike. It feels extremely responsive on those sorts of games.
It's 300 hertz. At the end of the day, it's nothing to be sniffed at. But on the thermals, and a lot of it is down to the 7nm process, and we know the power efficiency of that thing. I don't know as much about the Nvidia GPUs, but I had actually heard Ampere was, again, a bit more power efficient. It's on a better note.
Yeah. I mean, I looked at, there's some good, so if you look on things like, so I did a lot of research, obviously, before purchasing, but if you look at places like notebookcheck.net, which is one of my favorite kind of sites to look at, because laptop graphics is not going to be the same as your desktop graphics, even though they brand it identically in some, with the same naming.
Yeah, it's no way.
Yeah, so if you took like the 3070 on the laptop, then it's essentially equivalent to a 2070 on the desktop.
Yeah, you go kind of one level down mostly, I think, from what I know how it's like a 3080 on a laptop is
it's
mostly
probably desktop 3070. Yeah,
so you kind of like take it one peg down.
Yeah, I think that's roughly about right. Yeah.
But a lot of it is how you can push through these mobile devices.
Yeah, and I guess the other thing that the thing that you need to be very careful of if you're buying a kind of the latest gaming laptop at the moment is the TDP, the way that the graphics card, the power, the kind of power input that goes into those graphics cards is restricted, which will mean there'll be no way you can actually get to the performance levels of one that is completely unlocked.
Absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean it seems a bit variable now as well. And a little bit tied to your cooling design, the size of the chassis, whether it can manage heat, and again you portable device, you've got to account for battery life.
Yeah.
Unless you're planning to kind of like these massive thick desktop replacements, have it plugged into them most of the time. I mean, if you're going to do that, you might as well get a desktop.
Yeah. But I guess I was kind of split in between whether to get a laptop again or get another desktop. But because I think in the situation at the moment was with the desktop market really struggling to build something of decent value, when I looked at the full package of the laptop, a really good, nice, sufficient processor, a nice, nice kind of up-to-date kind of graphics card, and a really good cooling system, and a very nice screen, I was just like, this makes a huge amount of sense. Kind of went for it like on that basis.
I mean, was it MSRP?
Yeah. Well, actually, it's interesting because the UK market is, I don't know how they price it all the time or where they ship it in from, but I think it's technically MSRP for the UK. But I think it's if you do the sort of dollar US dollar to GBP equivalent, I think it's just 1-for-1 rather than the true exchange rate.
Yeah.
So I think that's what they've kind of done. That I kind of covered them for it.
Yeah, but it wasn't really marked up like GPUs.
Yeah, it didn't seem like it. So that's why I looked at it from a value perspective, and it just made the most sense.
Well, that's good to hear, actually.
Yeah. But I think that was the same discussion we had last time around. The whether the PS5 would be raised in prices because of the lack of desktop availability. In theory, I guess with desktop unavailability, then whether the laptops would end up being forced up again because of maybe demand is just skyrocketing.
Yeah, there are different levels, aren't there? seems like supply for CPUs and GPUs are massively constrained. But you've got multiple factors, including the pandemic, including mining, including, I guess, silicon production.
Yeah.
Then you got the consoles, also constrained, but people are able to get them. I mean, I got one. So on that front, difficult to get, but doesn't feel it's as difficult, if you know what I mean.
I think the supply is slowly coming back. I've been seeing stock coming back in slowly and trickling through, and at some point, there'll be a point where where there's probably enough of it in the market, especially with the limited. I still think there's a few sort of key titles on both the PS5 and the Xbox that would push even higher demand as soon as we get to that point. But maybe it's fine in the current situation, whilst the supply is quite limited.
Yeah. I mean, look, end of the day, it's good to see that AMD have got, let's say, a foot in the door in terms of kind of high-end laptops. More competition in the mobile space is, good. More competition, full stop, is good.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of think of it more from the perspective of kind of innovation. And yeah, you want to keep these companies on their toes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? These companies who we buy these products off, when it's all said and done, they're not necessarily for us, if you know what I mean. To have competition out there to push them is a good thing.
Yeah.
But I think what we haven't seen obviously right now is kind of AMD laptops with RDNA 2.
Yes. Yeah.
The mobile RDNA 2 chips are coming out second half of this year. And to a degree, that's when I think it's actually going to get really interesting. I kind of put out a video just talking about this. There's all these interesting technologies, and AMD are not the only ones doing it.
Yeah.
Nvidia do it. I'm sure Intel have got their own thing going on, and it's all just clever, sensible innovations to get a bit more power, out of these small. They're relatively, they're smaller obviously they're physically smaller, but they're smaller devices.
Yeah.
So AMD to my mind anyway, they seem to be quite big on, let's say, having an all AMD kind of device. So let's say it started with what they've done with APUs.
Yeah.
So I'm presuming they got some learnings there.
Yeah.
They can reuse. Then obviously those APUs made it into consoles. They've got real kind of APUs on computers. But on the laptop space, they were kind of talking about stuff like Smart Shift. SAM could be also quite interesting, that smart memory access. So access memory.
Yeah.
Let me correct myself. And to my mind, these are all innovations and technology that's just designed to draw out a bit more out of the hardware you've got.
Yeah.
Without just basically pushing more power through it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Driving the efficiency. I think the advantage is that because of the same company, you'd expect their drivers, the synergies that you have with your teams, to hopefully drive that and that improvement centrally. So I think they do have that kind of advantage behind there, that is kind of just being part of that same team, part of that same thing. They want to drive those additional efficiencies, because it's almost like cross-selling, right? Because by making your CPU work better with your own GPU, then you're kind of cross-selling to say, here's a performance boost that we can sell to you, and it's technically for free, but you've got to buy the same brand of
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, to a degree, that's going to be their unique selling point. But yeah, I mean, it's quite interesting. And you're right. I mean, you would think that, and let's say all of these components, you need to validate them. Yeah. But if you just validate it against your own products, that's got to be easier.
Yeah.
Than you going out and validating against every other CPU, GPU that's out there. I don't think they're promising any of that.
Yeah.
The drivers as well, to get this stuff working efficiently. That's got to be an advantage.
Yeah.
And really, I'm sure PC Windows fans won't like me to say this, but it's very Apple. Yeah, do you know what I mean? In terms of what they're doing, they can, to a degree, AMD are starting to control part of the ecosystem that they can control to get a bit more efficiency about with what they've got. If it works out well, then the results will kind of speak for itself.
Yeah, and it looks like the Nvidia deal with ARM is looking likely to pull through at the rate that I'm seeing it. So that'll be interesting to see what happens with what they want to do with ARM chips and Nvidia as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably going to be a factor on the enterprise, but also I think, let's not forget Windows. There's an ARM version of Windows. So that that's there or thereabouts. But yeah, I mean, I was just very excited to see that AMD finally making inroads into high-end laptops. And to be honest, that's the kind of laptop that I could want to purchase. But all these clever little innovations that not only AMD but Nvidia, Intel are creating. That's what we want to kind of see, really.
Yeah. It's definitely a good market, I think, at the moment. It's just it's such a really good generational leap. The efficiencies you get, it just makes a lot of sense.
Funny about efficiency. I did actually. I mean, we know it's well documented. PS5, Xbox Series X, very comparable performance.
Yeah.
PS5 is actually outperforming, I think, the Xbox Series X in a lot of, let's say, games from actually a frame rate perspective. So I kind of don't want to whine. You come out with all these outlandish theories. It's got infinity cache. It's got some secret something or another, right? It's got this, it's got that, right? But the reality is, it's probably a lot to do with the PS5's clock speed.
Yeah.
But the PS5 has actually also got a variant of Smart Shift.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I kind of wonder if that is that actually is something as simple as that, which AMD have promised that could deliver you up to 14% gains in performance. Is that it? Is that the secret sauce? That's not really that secret. You know what I mean?
I think they were very open about it in the designs, right? I think both of them have got something similar. I think maybe PS5 a bit more, but I think they were definitely pushing these synergies that they were having. And no doubt, AMD is just taking that same thing and pushing it for their desktop and laptop offering. Because why not take advantage of the technology that they developed with Sony?
Well, I think it was an AMD tech that Sony adapted. Yeah, I don't know if the Xbox has it. I think but it'd be interesting to see if it did.
Yeah.
For me, that if the PS5 is truly getting an advantage from that, then Smart Shift should be a nailed-on, almost must-have in your AMD laptop. I mean, it's like free performance because you're just being smart about power delivery.
Yeah. Although I think was it Nvidia? I think Nvidia was looking at it with being able to enable it, or maybe it was Intel chips that were looking to be able to enable it, because I think there are techniques that they can do to have something that's similar. And obviously, it is about the improvements that they can do with the drivers that they've got across them as well.
Yeah, Nvidia have got dynamic boost. That's their variant of it.
Yeah.
It works a little bit differently. I think.
Yeah.
Though I haven't really kind of looked at any kind of detail. AMD's Smart Shift is a bit more hardware level, much as I understand it. I think they've just given a means for the CPU and GPU to kind of interoperate and talk to one another. What I understood about it, you can actually change the power delivery in 2 milliseconds. Yeah, within a frame. It seems quite flexible and powerful from that perspective.
Yeah.
Be worth kind of seeing how that develops, really, because we're obviously not seeing any or a lot of laptops with that technology, because there's simply not a lot of laptops with both an AMD CPU and an AMD GPU.
Yeah, not yet anyway. So it will be interesting to see what that looks like.
So, with that said, I think it's time to move on to our next topic. So, the next topic to discuss is really free-to-play games. Basically, our experiences out, the beginnings of free-to-play, and the current state of free-to-play.
Yeah.
That's how I will, summarize it. I mean, my own experience of free-to-play, obviously I started from, mobile, really. Playing games on my iPhone or iPad or whatever else was a thing.
Yeah.
And this was some years ago. That was my first experience of kind of anything that was free to play. And I don't think it's really changed.
Yeah.
Most of the time I was actually pleasantly surprised at this free-to-play game was, quite functional.
Yeah.
Sometimes impressive. Yeah.
Yeah.
But equally, didn't really enjoy hit with requests to spend money or buy some sort of currency or,
Yeah.
like, what the hell is this daily kind of logging in bonus?
Yeah.
What the bloody hell is all of that? I just found it distracting more than anything else. I don't know, it was just annoying that someone was basically trying to get me to spend money. I found it more annoying that someone was basically breaking my immersion by trying to do all of this stuff. And so that hasn't really changed me too much. We're now seeing what I'd call the next generation. It's almost free to play 2.0. We can call it that.
Yeah, I think so. There's plenty of examples of it. It's expanded so much over time that you can argue there's a lot of technically free-to-play kind of games which are out there, but then because of its popularity, you'll spend on cosmetics, you'll spend on other things that are just part and parcel with the game. I mean, I guess my experience with it has been an interesting one because you could argue things like Dota 2. Dota 2 was free to play when it kind of was released, but other games that has a level of popularity result in people, enjoying the game and spending on it. I've probably spent a decent amount on Dota 2 over time, and it's technically completely free to play. You don't have to spend any money on it. And then similarly with other games from Blizzard, so Heroes of the Storm, Hearthstone, you don't actually have to spend to kind of keep up with that game. Although I think if you were to play serious ranked, then you would need to, purchase particular things in the likes of Hearthstone. And then obviously we've experienced Destiny and Warframe, things like that, of very differing styles of free to play as well. I think Warframe is one of those that are extremely generous in its approach to free to play.
I love Warframe. As you know, I mean, I haven't sunk as much time into it as some other people. No doubt about that. But I'm a little bit awestruck by that game. There's a bit of a story with Warframe, because I remember 7 years ago, whenever it was, when PS4 came out.
Yeah.
Obviously with PS4 there wasn't exactly a glut of like launch titles. I think, if I remember rightly, below that of the kind of like PS5 in what it had to offer, day one.
Yeah.
Warframe was actually one of the titles that you could download day one. I think it was day one.
Yeah.
And I do remember it fairly vividly. Getting up Warframe, mucking around with it, thinking, oh, this is interesting. This whole agile ninja dynamic, the sword play, it's interesting.
Yeah.
But literally, Al, there was nothing to do.
Yeah.
Nothing to do. So, obviously, I must have played it for a few hours, put it down, and then I think it was probably, if I remember this rightly, probably about 4 years after the fact, I picked it up again, thinking, yeah, I've got nothing to do. I'll just, Warframe's free to play. I'll just give it a shot. Yeah, and I was totally kind of gobsmacked. It just became very kind of like, what's the way that would I put this?
Complete,
complex, and really content rich.
Yeah.
This thing had got content obese.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I can say about it. It's just like, I got in there and I was like, first of all, I said, wow, what's all this stuff? Then I kind of thought, it's so complex, I just really don't know where to begin. You had a wealth of content, to get your teeth into. At that point, I kind of obviously started playing a little bit more with it.
Yeah.
Actually played the game, before I would go to work.
Yeah.
I did that for months. To the annoyance of my partner. I thought to myself, this is a real kind of Cinderella story here, you know what I mean? And, there has been documentaries, obviously, video game documentaries by, YouTubers and whatnot, talking about the whole kind of life cycle of Warframe. And, basically how they got to the point they're at now.
Yeah.
And again, this is a game that, had they not basically turned it around, that studio was out of business.
Yeah.
It was gone.
And it's definitely been a labour of love, and it just continued to have so much content. It is amazing what they're kind of putting out for it. And I think, if they do, I think the reason why I've not played huge amount of Warframe is just waiting for that cross save. As soon as it does that, I think it can justify the amount of time you spend on it, and you can spend on, switch between a PlayStation 4 or 5, and then go, drop onto your PC with the same account. You have the same progress. You can just do different things within the game because there's just so much of it.
Yeah, that would be amazing, I think.
Yeah.
That will definitely be good. I mean, with you, Al, I've started playing Warframe again.
But it'd be good, to play with our old gang that used to be playing Destiny as well, who are still on the PS4, right? So it'd be really good.
You will never get that old gang that used to play Destiny to play Warframe, in my view, right? Because we've been trying.
Mm-hmm.
And I prescribe to this whole kind of thing where you say, yeah, Warframe's better than Destiny. Well, I kind of do because I grew sick of Destiny.
Mm-hmm.
But don't get me wrong. I mean, I really enjoyed Destiny. Especially the first Destiny when we used to play into the night. Yeah.
Yeah.
But then subsequent expansion, and then obviously Destiny 2.
Yeah.
Free or not, free to play or not. My God, it just felt like
it was the same stuff again. It was just
yeah, exactly the same stuff, and it was also felt very hollow. If you know what I mean, as an experience for me. I mean, the gunplay's still as good as it ever was.
Yep.
That's your your bag. By all means, play it as much as you want.
Yep.
But for me, the whole thing felt a little bit hollow.
And
whilst I'll say Warframe, felt an obese experience where there was just too much and it was overwhelming.
Yeah, definitely an overwhelming experience.
Yeah. Destiny was the other way. It just felt like it was. It just felt hollow.
And I think that was the problem with Destiny, that I kind of listened, and I joined late to Destiny 1 anyway, because you guys convinced me to kind of join you guys to play it. So I thought, you know what, I'll play a bit. But then I gave up after one. I can't remember if it was one or two expansions kind of in. I was just like,
yeah, probably one or two.
It was just like promises that weren't really making any sense to me. So yeah,
I'm still hoping one day, right, that if Destiny. That's changes that I personally think it needs. Not every. I mean, obviously, there's millions of people out there playing Destiny, so obviously it's doing something right.
Yeah.
But for me, the reason I like Warframe is that I want that choice. To the degree I want to be overwhelmed, and I want an obese experience, not an anorexic one. You know what I mean? Like, to my mind, and I always go back to this. I kind of think. If Destiny had just retained some of the content they had, I don't mind going back and playing the same strikes over and over again. I don't mind any of that. Yeah. But, taking things away, and I just remember the whole, the early days of Destiny where it was all about the exotics.
Oh, yeah.
And then that kind of dried up
over
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if it's changed because I've not gone back to kind of Destiny in a while. But where had that gone?
I didn't like the way that they removed old content rather than reusing it, rebalancing, repurposing. I know they've made reasons for not maintaining it, but I don't think they're true reasons that are kind of behind it. Because they had an opportunity with Destiny 1, Destiny 2. I think on launch was quite horrendous, if I remember correctly. At least some of the original kind of things around it, having to, again, similar to a lot of these AAA titles nowadays, where they're rushing for a release or having to rebuild it from kind of ground up because of not really meeting the dev requirements that was in there, and then resulting in a really shonky AAA release. And these because again you mentioned you don't want that anorexic kind of release, but there's a lot of AAA titles that have been doing that, right? You could argue from Fallout 76, all those different things that have just been, on release has just been so underwhelming. No,
I hear you. I mean, I do wonder also whether I'm not going to say it's just down to free to play, but it's certainly down to having games that are really, it's gaming as a platform almost, or the gaming where really everything's online, and the reality is, right, you can fix it at a later date, so your initial product doesn't need to be maybe
as polished,
as polished, or even the full feature set or the full product.
I
think obviously fully understandable, that developers may feel they need to do that, but equally they've got to strike a kind of sensible balance here, because no one's gonna really kind of want your game if it's just kind of a half product.
Yeah.
People are gonna know that.
Yeah, and then the key thing I think with free to play is just a regular cycle of content, because if it dries up, I think that was one of the other struggles with Destiny, was that, I mean, they blamed the engine, they blamed a whole bunch of things in order for them to be restrictive to do that release, but they've had opportunities to fix that. But the key is being able to continue with that content. It keeps the popularity of the game up, and by doing that, people will just spend money on those games.
Yeah.
I've been playing, like I mentioned on the last kind of podcast, there's Genshin Impact as well. I've been playing a lot of that. I've been sort of purchasing their basic packs and their basic battle pass and things like that, because again I'm sinking enough hours into it, and it's been an enjoyable experience from a kind of a technically a free to play game kind of perspective. There are some, and I think I kind of mentioned there was some really strange nuancy mechanics around loot boxes and things like that. Also known as a gacha system, which is a kind of a Japanese term for kind of gambling for a particular kind of rewards. It kind of pushes that, and it can be quite dangerous, I guess, for people that can get really addicted. But otherwise, I think it's a good solid game that they got there in Genshin Impact.
With that sort of thing, I think developers, publishers need to have a little bit of responsibility as well. Because you don't want to. I mean, we know certain things work. We know that I call it a gameplay science to things. Yeah. People want that, instant gratification. There's a game loop that people want to engage in. There needs to be a bit of responsibility and kind of common sense there. The whole gambling and the addiction. Care has to be taken. I mean, I always kind of worry when I hear that games are basically touching or going down the direction of gambling. Yeah. Don't take it too far. is what I say. Don't take it too far and go out of business, especially if you've got a good game. You know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, what is Genshin Impact is it? Because I feel that Warframe is a really fair free to play game. It's fair.
Yeah.
In what it does. Is Genshin Impact a fair free to play game?
I would say yes. I think you could play it relatively free to play. I think the thing that the players complain the most about is what they call the resin system, which is basically a refresh over time in order to play specific content. So basically it time gates you. You can't basically just play 24/7 to grind something, because you will run out of things to do. And it will stop you from doing the sort of end content, because you need this resin to essentially unlock the rewards from doing something. People do complain about it, but it's one of those that actually I think it's probably a good balance, that it just stops people from being on the game 24/7. So for me it's quite nice. I just basically log in once or twice a day, do the odd thing to kind of keep the resin count kind of going, and just kind of finish off that content. And then every so often they'll release big events that you can play, which is additional new content. So they've done kind of events for I guess Chinese New Year, and all sorts of stuff. So I'm expecting them to keep going, really.
That's actually a good move. I think it just sounds like they're being kind of like sensible there.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting. I mean, they don't really talk about. I mean, I get what they've done is, because there's a lot of systems which are very similar maybe it's from the mobile games. You know how mobile games, they'll limit you to saying you can only play 10 games of this per day.
Yeah,
and then you have to pay for the Pro Edition or something in order to unlock additional things.
Yeah, of course.
It's kind of a bit like that, because you could actually pay some money, or you could pay some things to unlock more resin. So you can pay to play more. So it's a kind of a gated system around that. But I don't know if they ever talk about really, is it also to try and reduce the amount of time that people play? Because there's obviously the old classic stories of, a kid or someone that's been basically playing StarCraft all day for 3 days or something, not going out to eat or anything, and just collapsing and dying. This system would stop that from happening.
It's not pay to win, and it's certainly not, it's not bad cosmetics.
Yeah, there is a pay-to-win angle on it. So this gacha, these loot boxes, you can basically roll for characters, and you can roll for weapons. And basically, you can unlock those only sometimes through this particular kind of system. So, like, what they call the five-star characters, five-star weapons. In order to get that, you have to roll on these particular loot boxes. Admittedly, you get some free ones, but typically you won't get enough. Which means you should spend to get those particular items. So there's a way for them to, because you're so addicted, you want the best item. Then yes, you want to kind of roll for it.
Yeah.
The other angle is because there's no real PvP, then you're only really playing against the game. It's all PvE based. There is co-op kind of portions. A lot of the content is solo, but yeah, it's more bragging rights. If anything,
Sounds like my kind of game, really, because I'm not really much of a PvP player, but I like PvE.
Yeah, you should try it at some point. It's quite.
Yeah,
it's
the whole timing thing again, Al. You know what I mean? Like, there's no getting away from that shit, right? So, like, time is everybody's limit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the whole free-to-play thing, though. I mean, like, there's some really great quality kind of like titles out there that are free-to-play, which is 10 years ago, I think that would have been astounding. There's a load of there's a load of free-to-play games that I want to try.
Yeah, and mobile as well, because I imagine Diablo Immortal might be free to play.
I imagine it might be, but I haven't really looked into that.
I think they've only really started beta testing it in China, I believe, because that's the market they're really going after.
Yeah, of course, right. This part, is it Path to Exile, or what is that?
Path of Exile.
That's free to play, right?
Yes. So there should be Path of Exile 2 or 3 kind of coming at some point.
I think it's the second one's coming out.
Yeah, I think the mobile kind of market is where it's going to get really interesting. To see if there's any other games that will come out of interest, because there's all these kind of random kind of basic games. I mean, Hearthstone was technically free to play, and I played a lot of that. I don't think I actually spent a single penny on that game, actually. Now that I think back to it. But again, there was a lot of popularity of mobile games and a lot of popularity of these free-to-play models. But as soon as people start playing it and get kind of addicted to the game, they're more than willing to spend money on it. Because if you think about the hours of time and effort you kind of spend on it, it's I can see it being perfectly fine. You can even look at what was the other one, Call of Duty. Was it Warzone? The Battle Royale game. That was, again, that's done pretty well for making it kind of a free-to-play model. And Apex Legends was free-to-play, wasn't it, as well? And that did really well. Again, with loot boxes, although those were all cosmetic, so there was no pay-to-win element of it. So there's lots of free-to-play games out there.
I think my own view is that cosmetics, customizations like that, really does matter for most players. I think,
There's bragging rights.
Yeah, I mean, I think it matters even more than play to win and all of that sort of stuff. You know what I mean? Because for me, right, I mean, I think something like cosmetics and customization that has a bit of that is a sustained revenue stream.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not like a one-off thing, because the game's over. It's over.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and if you've got a good base gameplay loop, which is what Apex Legends was, there's that good kind of fast gameplay. People were enjoying it, and then people were just spending on their kind of their loot boxes to get that legendary skin or something that they're kind of going after. Again, for additional bragging rights.
Yeah, definitely, most definitely.
Yeah.
So, Al, anything more to say on free to play?
No, I think we've covered the wide kind of selection of free to play. And I think the key is that is there maybe we can discuss that as the level of responsibility around the things like loot boxes and spending and even kids spending. You could argue Fortnite, I guess, is the really big one.
yeah, that we've not talked about. I mean, I don't know, but I'm not a Fortnite player. I mean, my nieces were.
yeah. But that's a completely different market of people that are playing it. But it's so popular that people are spending. That are spending their mum's credit card on it. So.
Yeah, someone's credit card. One thing that I will say, like, before we conclude this topic, is that why the bloody hell does everybody still talk about Destiny, but no one ever talks about Warframe? Because I do follow other obviously podcasters and YouTubers, and more often than not, we're talking about, let's say, online shooters and free to play and whatnot. Destiny always comes up in the conversation.
Yeah.
Warframe never comes up in the conversation.
Yeah.
In actual fact, right, Warframe doesn't ever come up in the conversation other than with people who play Warframe. If you know what I mean. So you have a very general conversation about, let's say, online shooters, online action games. Most often than not, it doesn't ever feel like Warframe is ever going to be mentioned, and I don't really know what it is.
And I think it's a popularity thing. I think it's also the PvP aspect. I think PvP is actually quite big in Destiny as well. So a lot of people play it for that particular kind of model. But I think when you look at the core of the content, and again the free-to-play aspect of Warframe, your question is completely valid. It's like, why why aren't people playing it more?
Yeah, because it's just so impressive. There's just no two ways of kind of saying it. It's just so impressive.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that year where they basically decided to give players, we're just going to give you a large open world map.
Yep.
And we're just going to keep churning this out. And then, they did the whole, was it the gun rail thing? The gun jack or whatever it was called, right? But I mean, here's a basically starship we're going to give you to customize.
Yeah.
And do missions with. For me, I mean, my mind's blown about, not necessarily about the kind of content you get in Warframe, just about why doesn't anybody talk about this game? Basically, why isn't it? It doesn't really feel it's in the upper echelon of conversations about games. I mean,
yeah, it could be a pace thing as well, because there was the other comment from one of our other friends, right, that said it was too quick for them. There was, or the frames were too quick for them. So
yeah,
there could be that level. Yeah.
Gameplay style. I think. I mean, it is a third person, not a first person action game. I can imagine the gameplay mechanic isn't going to really kind of suit everybody.
Yeah.
For what they're doing, I mean, I'm just thinking, this is seriously impressive. It's at least technically impressive what they're able to do. But, again, it doesn't make it into the, what I feel is the upper echelon of conversation in terms of the games that are free to play, online, gaming as a platform. Why not?
Yeah. And maybe I'll have a think about that a bit more. But I think it is about the gameplay and the accessibility of the game. You can argue that some of the games may be more casual orientated, because you did say you're overwhelmed. The amount of content that's in there.
I like games that are complex and have a lot of depth and all that sort of thing. But it's just the way I'm built. Yeah. Other people might look at this thing and say, "Holy shit." I haven't got 2 decades for this.
Yeah,
I know that's what Rob kind of, when he first looked at it, he thought to himself, like, I just don't know what to do.
Yep. I mean, I've played it for a bit and I still don't know what to do in it.
Yeah, that's true. That's, if I'm being honest with myself, that's probably true of myself as well.
Yeah.
But anyway, we'll need to kind of conclude the free to play part of this podcast, and I think it's time to move on. Really
cool.
So now the last topic we have for today is the cryptocurrency mining processor. And I'm guessing, this is the piece of hardware that Nvidia are bringing out. Is that what we're talking about here?
Yeah. So we mentioned it on the last one. I did mention it, and I think as we were talking about it, only a few days afterwards, that Nvidia did confirm that they were actually going to do this and start releasing it. As well as an additional thing, which was interesting, was that the 3060 that they were going to start releasing was going to get throttled, so that it would be less efficient to run essentially mining type kind of hash calculations. So what it was doing there was, specifically in the drivers, it was causing it to be less attractive to purchase a 3060 for crypto mining versus their particular kind of CMP processor.
I think the throttling was going to happen for more than the 3060, or was it just?
I think they definitely said 3060, but I don't think they've confirmed the throttling is going to be on the 3070 and the 3080, because I'd imagine there'd be a lot of pissed off crypto miners if they suddenly just saw their 3070, 3080 suddenly just go downgrade in performance. But I suspect there's also ways around it by tweaking the drivers, hacking the drivers, or not even upgrading the drivers just to keep the efficiency. So that I'm sure there's ways around it, which they probably haven't thought about, or they're probably trying to show. And that maybe is where I think I watched Linus's kind of update on some of this. He wasn't happy about this whole situation around what they were doing with it, because it's trying to feel like they're doing stuff for the gamer, but where in reality they're just interested in making money, which is what a corporation should do.
It's mostly about
And
PR.
mm,
It's a little bit disingenuous, I would say.
mm, mm,
It's clear that someone has to do something, if you know what I mean.
yes,
I mean, that much is
yep,
clear. I don't want to criticize, somebody for trying to do something. But, obviously we're not talking about whether you act, we're talking about the motivations of your action here.
yeah.
And I actually think that's a little bit murky.
It is. It's one of those that stems a really difficult ground with crypto mining in general. And I think the general public is starting to catch on to it. Just the basic sheer waste of resources to do this thing, and I think people are catching on to it because I think there was an article even on the BBC I was gonna say maybe a few weeks back, if not a month back now, where it said that they kind of either someone in Oxford or someone at a university had estimated the energy consumption of doing crypto mining was essentially all those rigs was equivalent to the whole of the energy consumption of Argentina. So there's literally a whole country's worth, and not a small country by any means, of energy output, the sort of carbon emissions and everything that's kind of around it, and that stipulation, and for what, right? So, which I don't think really has been thought about. So I think people are starting to catch up onto it, but it's taken a long time to get to this point.
Yeah, I certainly don't think it's something that the common man or the normal computer user could really make any money out of, because, like you said, the energy, certainly the GPUs that we buy are not necessarily enterprise level. When I mean that, I mean they're not really designed to run 24/7.
But that's what they're doing with these rigs, though. That's why the 3070s have sold out and stuff like that.
Course.
They're literally just buying these rigs and running them to do mining. And I guess recently, because of the shooting up in the prices, it's become how should I say, cost viable as the reason for them to go in to be back in that market, because it went quiet, I think, even with some of the 20 series, and then it kind of gave up. So there was a shift where I think the main shift was Bitcoin became too expensive. Ethereum was the other one that you can mine, and resulted in people kind of jumping on the in that bandwagon to start mining for Ethereum. But it's very, very murky. It's one of those me personally, I'm not a fan of that particular wasted energy and effort to do something that isn't really necessary. It was a scientific experiment that resulted in these algorithms.
But I think someone's making money out of it, and I think if you're a miner and you're a proper organization that mines, then you know what, you can afford to pay whatever you want to pay for these GPUs and and replace them when it goes faulty. But it's like surely it must be running a mini data center.
Oh yeah, pretty much. They're all just server based. They don't care about the visual output. As I was kind of saying last time, that basically these CMP cards will be specifically designed to run the hashing algorithms for crypto mining.
Yeah.
They're having to throttle the more retail-based 3060, maybe, and they probably will do, like you're saying, to the 3070 and 3080 at some point. But I suspect they'll need to wait until that becomes more available.
But I hear that miners are able to. I mean, they're so cash rich, I guess.
Oh yeah.
They're able to get people to write biases for them.
Oh yeah. But there's also stories of buying up laptops to do this as well.
Yeah, I've seen that.
I've seen literally rigs of laptops stacked on top of each other as makeshift servers.
That is got to be the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. Because laptops are definitely not designed for that sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? I mean, they must have 100 fans pointing at them or something wrong, something silly. Because they're definitely not designed.
They probably have to take off the screen, and then rip out the chassis and just leave it bare bone or something.
Yeah, kind of something, right? I mean, you're so desperate that you basically need to buy a ton of laptop. You can't get hold of graphics cards anymore. Crazy.
But it also touches on an interesting thing because it was the PS3, wasn't it, that allowed you to use some of your spare spare processing, for kind of scientific effort, because you could basically contribute together to do these sorts of things.
Yeah. I think there were some casual miners who not really doing this for a full-on living, basically dabble in some of that.
Yeah, I was just surprised that they've not thought about, so with the PS3 example, why haven't they just bought loads of PS4s to do to do crypto mining?
That PS4s won't really get you anywhere.
True.
I think
nowadays, but maybe the PS5 when it becomes more available.
Even that, I mean, it does a job with gaming, but I don't know that it will be any good at mining and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
In this scenario, you definitely need something with big teraflops. No doubt about that.
Yeah.
But going back to Nvidia, do we think these guys were actually, really for the gamers or not? Because there were some YouTubers out there who were just, and I think it was a bit tongue in cheek what they were saying. Nvidia saves PC gaming. I mean, I did the same thing. I just kind of laughed my arse off. I thought Nvidia saves PC gaming. No, I think it's more like Nvidia want to make a big profit somewhere.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, they can. Yeah, we're definitely an important factor, I would say. But at the end of the day, they're a large corporation that needs to make money. That's just a fact of what it is as a company.
Yeah. But I hear that. I mean, the only thing that I would say is positive is that I hear they're really creating these cards using the old architecture.
Yes.
Turing rather than Ampere. So I mean, that's a good thing. I think that's at least something.
If they can repurpose some of the leftover stock, then it makes a lot of sense.
But if they're not doing that, does that mean they're basically telling fabs they're working with, because they don't have their own fabs in Nvidia? Obviously they're not Intel.
Yeah.
But are they actually diverting resource to make these crypto cards?
There must be some in order to do it.
And obviously diverting those resources, does that actually mean they're going to make fewer GPUs for gaming? So they're not really saving anybody.
Probably not. Which is where it's interesting. I don't know what I've not seen any of the pricing kind of behind these these CMPs and whether how they're actually going to compare. Because I imagine that someone's going to benchmark it, between them, between the different cards versus the CMP kind of cards. And if CMP is proven to be cost effective, it's all about cost, right? To whoever's doing the mining. If it is proven to be cost effective, they'll be all over it.
I'm not sure that Nvidia even care if it's cost effective to miners. I mean, because I just think this whole mining thing is going to be a relatively short term thing. Like the last one was, and like the one before that.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm hoping people understand or at least the general public will start to pick up on the green aspects around crypto mining. And start to really consider the impact it's been having. It's been years. I've definitely been saying it that I don't know what they're doing with farms or data centers in Iceland or whatever, but the overall impact is probably much bigger than people probably realize.
True. An interesting point that no one's really talking about, to be honest. The green aspect of it, the energy usage. But what are you gonna do though? I mean, that's the thing. People are there to make money. That's the problem.
Yeah.
So if there's an opportunity, they will basically gravitate towards that. But I mean, it's an interesting thing. I mean, the whole crypto thing is obviously impacting the market, severely impacting, I would say, GPU availability.
Yep.
We've now got one of the biggest and the main GPU company now making a specific card for mining.
Yep.
Whether they're saving kind of like PC gaming or not is yet to be determined, but I know what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they have to make it really attractive to make any sense for crypto miners, because otherwise they're just going to buy the 3070s, the 3060s. They'll buy, I'm sure they'll find ways to bypass the drivers. If it's only software based, there's going to be ways around it for them to get through it.
Well, this is going to be interesting, isn't it, Al?
Mm.
See, this is the question I have, is that when someone came out with this idea, did they start off by saying, guys, you know what? We've got to really save PC gaming. Help our gamers here. Or was it that, hey guys, you know what? There's a bunch of people who are really cash rich. And they'll buy all sorts of hardware that we put in front of them, as long as we brand it as kind of like for crypto mining.
Mm-hmm.
And what we'll do to sway them and push them down that direction is we'll basically throttle our existing cards to make it less attractive. So they might say, what the hell? Why bother with this? This other card does the job.
Yeah.
Maybe,
but I think the average crypto miner is quite tech savvy. To even jump into it, I think they have to understand what they're trying to do.
Yeah, I'm sure they do. I'm sure they do, and I'm sure they could do it.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, Nvidia are also quite tech savvy.
True.
And how difficult have they made this? Like that's the question.
This is where I think a benchmark is going to be the thing that changes it. They're not going to pre-order these things. At least that's what I think they won't anyway, without some performance stats. And as soon as they hear the performance stats, whoever jumps in first to do the performance check against a 3060 or 3070 and do the comparisons, the resulting kind of outcome to that will then determine whether there's going to be a surge of people jumping onto it. So it really does depend on the efficiency.
Yeah. We'll see. I mean, I think this is just very questionable. You know what I mean? I think, I mean, whatever the outcomes are, for or against gamers, whatever the outcome is, I just think it's very questionable.
The motives.
Yeah, the motives. I
agree.
I can't really believe in, for myself that it was basically, we're going to save PC gaming. That can't have been the motive. What corporation really thinks like that? I can't believe it.
It's a secondary impact as a result of what they're trying to do.
Of course. There are always a number of reasons to do something, yeah? But the reason you acted, and that's the thing I'm talking about here, it's not necessarily the peripheral effect it has, right?
Yeah.
But there's a reason that you mustered your resources and your people to do something, yeah? Yep. And it's always one reason, yeah?
Yep.
And whatever the kind of peripheral effects are the peripheral effects. And you know about those peripheral effects because at the end of the day, you're thinking about the PR, you're thinking about mindshare, you're thinking about how you're perceived in the public eye. Yeah. But yeah, it's just very kind of like, I'm rubbing my chin here.
Yeah. I don't think it was their primary goal or objective to what they were trying to achieve.
Indeed.
But an important secondary aspect and good PR that goes around it.
Indeed. Okay, Al. I think that's really, the last topic we were going to talk about. I think really we're at our conclusion of this neutral lounge. It's really time to wrap up. Let's ask our usual question. So, Al, games are you playing at the moment, and what tech activities are you basically involved in?
Yeah. So games wise, still definitely Genshin Impact, Warframe with you guys. I'm kind of playing a bit of that. Digging out some more games actually. I mean, I downloaded with the new laptop that I've got. I've dug out some old games that I want to try and play. I've even looked up whether what games that we can do ray tracing, the RTX kind of on stuff on it. Not quite yet, but I'll probably do Cyberpunk probably at the weekend just to have a look at it and maybe leave it until the bugs are kind of resolved a bit more. Yeah, and that's it really at the moment. Not done too much playing with the laptop in terms of tweaking its settings, but maybe at the weekend I'll do some of that too.
Cool.
Yeah. What about yourself, Joe?
Before we go into that, Al, I want to make one point here. When we talked about ray tracing, we specifically called it RTX.
Oh.
Yeah. full credit to Nvidia,
Mm.
basically brainwashing everybody.
Mm. Yeah, well, RTX on, right, is the branding that they go for.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, quite funny that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as for myself, yeah, we've started playing Warframe again, and obviously we kicked it off on the PC the other day, but I actually started kind of mucking around with it on the PS5 because obviously the PS5 we got that patch that came out that improved the actual overall fidelity, added some haptics, added some kind of 3D audio.
Yeah.
So I've done that. Obviously, I'm still trying to get through my back catalogue, so I'm trying to kind of chip away at kind of God of War.
Mm-hmm.
Very impressed with that game.
Yeah.
Even though it's a last gen game. What else am I doing technically? Ironically, a lot of my time is being spent editing podcasts and learning how to edit podcasts. I would say, right? And I'm actually amazed I didn't really say that in our last neutral lounge. That really, that's what I've been doing, spending a lot of my time technically doing, right? And learning the tools and experimenting, if you like. The other thing I'm really doing is, and this is really not really games related, but it's technology related. It's delving more into the DevOps world. And for anybody who doesn't know, it's really more IT related. And kind of learning the Google Cloud offering, Amazon, AWS, stuff like that. That's where I've been spending my time, professionally. And I think the Google kind of thing would be actually quite an interesting topic. Stadia seems to be evolving or changing. But I think there's a conversation to be had there. I think, whatever you say about Google, they have got a really good networking cloud offering. Maybe it's not a games offering. Granted, it's not a games offering.
But you could argue, well, there's probably something very interesting to talk about there, is games and game servers and hosting of those servers. Because virtual servers and things like that have been around for some time. But maybe the interesting thing is how cost efficient the cloud services can make it. The GCPs, the AWSs, the Azures, how actually it can really be competitive versus some basic offerings that are probably out there.
Yeah, I do wonder that with the whole Google thing, and like we're deviating a little bit, but I do wonder where, in my own mind, right, Google are a company who they're kind of like a fail fast.
Yes.
And what I mean by that is I know you know Al, but I mean for anybody that might be listening to this, and I still maintain it's you and I, like maybe my sister now, who knows, right? Yeah, they're really a fail fast company, and that means they think big, they act small, they fail fast, and they learn rapidly.
Yeah.
And I actually think that's what they've done with Stadia. I think they've looked and delved into the whole gaming thing. And that means basically setting up the infrastructure to, have a gaming console in the cloud is what they strive for. And around that, basically hiring the talent that could create these first-party games with them. Now, it looks like they're moving away from that now. Yeah. However, with what they've learned, what's the reality? The reality is Google have an amazing internet network. Yeah. We know they have really impressive cloud-based computing capability. Rather than being the actual game service, why not just be the infrastructure?
Oh yeah. I mean, they've proven so much stuff with it, right? Obviously there was those latency and selling points of Stadia, etc. That we could probably talk about in kind of the kind of a subsequent podcast. But they've tested that infrastructure. They've got so much statistics behind it to say what they can actually do from the network and things they have.
You have to wonder, was this whole thing just a massive experiment? You know what I mean? Like, it was kind of like, we'll plow the money in. They're such a rich company, they can, and basically we'll learn what we learn. And if we can't go with this plan A, then we have a good plan B that basically plays to our strengths. One of the strengths is Google has their own. They've got a network infrastructure for themselves, and it's global. It's not just one country. It's global. Yeah. So you have to wonder about that kind of stuff, and it's interesting.
Yeah.
So definitely, that's definitely a talking point at some point.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I'm doing at the moment. So I'm dabbling in all of that stuff. Still gaming, just about. But yeah. So Al, I think we've again talked a lot. We've kind of hit beyond kind of 2 hours now. For this particular podcast, I'm going to obviously trim it down. There'll be no choice in that. We've kind of covered a lot of points, said a lot. Hopefully if anybody does listen to this, they've got something out of this. It's, again, time for our goodbyes, so it's goodbye from me, Joe.
Yeah, it's goodbye from me, Al.
And until the next time.
Thanks, guys.
Have a stellar day.